Okay, welcome to Fowler's Facts, and we welcome our staff statistician, Clinton Fowler. Going to talk all about Ken Roczen here in this edition. I suppose in hindsight, seeing Roczen win Glendale, he's had success at this place before, so maybe it looked obvious. But against this field to be this good, this was a really, really strong ride.
Yeah, he's been phenomenal here at Glendale. He won in 2016. He won in the 2020 win. He swept the Triple Crown, the only time that's ever been done. So it shouldn't have been a surprise for us, but nonetheless, an incredible ride. The thing I want to start with, Weege, all-time status. He's now tied with Cooper Webb, 10th all-time in wins, 22. He's 9th all-time, tied with Jeff Ward with Supercross podiums, 66. He's 8th in Supercross points, just 2 points behind Jeff Ward. So you got to imagine he's going to pass him next weekend or in 2 weekends. So just incredible here. JT, I look at it, he's clearly all-time, top 10 all-time, but does he get the credit he deserves?
Well, I think not having that Monster Energy Supercross championship is the real stat that everybody's going to point to for him not getting the credit he deserves. And I don't know if he's ever going to get it. That's the injury has to be pointed to in 2017. He looked like he was well on his way to winning many, at least one, if not many. So I think, history will look upon him fondly. You look at his status in the sport as a personality and how many wins and the dominant wins he's had. So to me, he is going to end up being like a Kevin Windham, a very fondly remembered superstar if he doesn't get that championship. But his stats are accumulating quickly here.
I think part of the reason it doesn't maybe reflect is because, man, he had his heart ripped out so many times by Cooper Webb, and that's not when people picture champion in their mind, it was not the way it worked out for Roczen. So I think that's kind of maybe tarnished how good he's actually been. And by the way, I find it hilarious that every time Webb or Roczen wins, they either tie or break a tie with each other. There's some sort of irony there. They've been so closely matched throughout their careers. But maybe, Clinton, it's not over. You're trying to make a case here that even for this year's title, maybe Roczen's better than we think, maybe more of a favorite than we think.
I think you've got to start to ask that question a little bit. This performance was absolutely dominating. I would argue the most dominant of the season so far through 6 rounds. Yes, Jet had a great ride at A1. Yes, he had a great ride in Detroit. But let's not forget, in Detroit, Roczen set the absolute fastest lap of that main event. Here in Glendale, he set the 8 of the 13 fastest laps. Almost half of his main event was faster than everybody else in the top 10. Just incredible. And we should have seen it coming throughout the day, because in his heat race, every one of his 8 laps was fastest in the top 15. So just incredible. He was faster than 35 of 40 riders every one of his laps. So just an incredible performance, JT. So when you look at Arlington coming up, what do you think is expected from him?
Well, I think he can win again. I really do. And the question will be, can he maintain this level of excellence through the months of March and April and early May? That's it. That is the only question that I think you have to ask about Ken Roczen, because it's been the question he hasn't been able to answer positively himself down the stretch. So for me, February, him winning a track like Arlington, no problem. Wouldn't shock me in the least bit. It's 6 or 8, 10 weeks from now. What does that look like?
Yeah, Clinton, this is interesting. You mentioned Jet Lawrence was great at Anaheim 1 and Detroit, but you could argue there's been just as many rounds here where Roczen has been the same level of dominance. You said this Glendale 1 was the most dominant performance by anyone all year. So let's look at these points and where Roczen could or should be right now.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is he could be holding the red plate right now, but 2 mistakes. Anaheim 1 crashes in the first turn, and maybe the more impactful and the most important one, leading the race in San Diego, and he makes an unforced error as Aaron Plessinger starts to catch him. Those 2 races combined to cost him 19 points. You give him back those 19 points, he is the red plate holder. Give him back just the San Diego race, and he's tied with Jet Lawrence, right? So the gap right now between 1st and 6th, where he sits, 15 points, the smallest in history, makes for some incredible competition here as we move forward. JT, I've got to imagine that he's a 2024 title contender. What do you think?
Sure, certainly could be. The San Diego one was shocking to me. We don't see him throw races away like that. Usually, if you let him get out front and comfortable, it's going to be really hard to do much about that. But yeah, again, I come back to the same thing. Is this same Ken Roczen we're watching in Glendale, that level of excellence? Can he show that when we go to Nashville, when we're late in the year, when his body is feeling the fatigue of flying around the country nonstop? Is he the same guy that he has been in January and February?
Oh, Clinton, you have really stirred up some data if you're a Ken Roczen fan. Most dominant night of the year at Glendale, could be in the points lead if you remove a few incidents here and there. You're telling these fans exactly what they want to hear.
It's a good season here. We've got parity. It's so close. Anybody could win this thing, I think, with a 15-point gap between the top 6.
Yes. Last thing, tell us how close 15 points actually is historically.
I mean, it's kind of crazy, guys. The average historically is 50 points between first and sixth place. Right now, that 15-point gap, the smallest in history. The second smallest is 25 points. So I think we're in unprecedented times. I think we're in for an interesting season, guys.
Wow. Okay. So the average is a 50-point gap. Right now, we have a 15-point gap. This is awesome, no matter who you're a fan of. All right. Thanks for the data, Clinton.
Thanks, guys.
Hi, folks. Lee Diffie from NBC Sports here. If you truly enjoyed what you just watched, you can get more news, interviews, and highlights by subscribing to the Motorsports on NBC YouTube page. You can get it all, so go for it.